Interview with Edward C. Gerke and his wife, Mary Ann Gerke, of 379 Sterling Drive, Diamonddale, Michigan, 48821. The phone number is area code 517-646-6952. The recording was made by Jim Walkinshaw at the Oldsmobile History Center at 4000 North Grand River in Lansing on November 9th, 1990. This is tape number 1 of 2 tapes. Mary Ann is on tape number 2. Ed, if you would just start, please, with your name and your address and your phone number for us.
Okay. Edward C. Gerke, 379 Sterling Drive, Diamonddale, Michigan, 48821. The phone number is 646-6952.
Okay, and then if you would just go back to when you started and what was going on.
Well, I'll tell you, Oldsmobile, I think, was practically my whole life. I graduated from high school in 1927, and in August of 27, I went and applied for a job at Oldsmobile. And the employment director, for some reason, directed me to the personnel director, Mr. Roberts at that time.
Okay.
He had a job in the mailing room run by Bud Tooley. And I got the job. I think it was for $60 a month. And I carried the office mail twice, or more than twice a day, but I carried the motor plant once a day in the afternoon, and the office I usually carried about every hour on the hour.
Okay.
Now, of course, I was there until April in 1928, when I heard of a blueprint boy leaving in the product engineering section. So I immediately went over and contacted John Alphys, and I got that job. That was 45 cents an hour, I think, at that time. And I was in the blueprint room for a few months, and I asked Mr. Alphys if I could get a job on the drafting board. And he put me out on the drafting board for a while, and I was on there and for I don't know how long, but certainly at the time. And then I felt the drafting was too confining. So I asked John if I couldn't go out and do some liaison work in the plant, and he began assigning me certain jobs to go out and check certain things on the line or certain things in the plant. And after that, of course, we're writing bulletins for the GMAD plants at that time. And then, of course, the World War come on. And at this time, of course, we started the war effort before Pearl Harbor. Mm-hmm. And Ed McLean, who was a liaison between the engine plant and product engineering, was assigned to defense work, and they asked me if I would become the liaison in between product engineering and the motor plant. Then, of course, we went into the war years, at which time I worked was on the 20 millimeter gun and the 37 millimeter aircraft cannon, and finally the 75 millimeter aircraft cannon. After the war, they assigned Mr. McLean to a different job, and they asked me if I wanted to continue as a liaison between product engineering. Of course, that's what I wanted to do. And this is about the time that we were entering into making the rocket engine. And of course, I had to contact the foundries. And at that time, Pontiac was making our inline blocks and heads. And I made a couple trips with Mr. Downey, T.C. Downey, the plant manager, and all of a sudden, somebody down to headquarters switched the making of that. I'm sure that we'd never gotten in production if they'd left this block with Pontiac, because they had neither the personnel or the foundry people that could do it. They switched the block to be made by Chevrolet foundry in Saginaw. And I made a trip there with Mr. Downey at that time. And this is the only contact I've ever had with Mr. Downey, and I feel that this probably was the reason I spent the balance. Had about 22 years in product engineering, and the balance of the time, which is 43 years out on the plant. See. But the Chevrolet took over the making of the block, the rocket engine, and of course my job, I had the job of always contacting the foundry, making the changes between what engineering wanted and what the foundry could do. See? So now let's see. And then Ford was rating our personnel at about this time, if you recall. And Mr. Katke joined the Ford organization, and Mr. Church, Louis Church, took his place, and Elmer Corbin took Mr. Church's place, and I was asked if I'd come out in the plant in at that time, the inspection department. So I did, and of course I was in the inline 6 plant for only a year, because that's when it was wound up. I mean, it's the end of production. And I got the job then of new car conditioning for a few months, and then of course later on I was assigned to the motor plant. In fact, is only in the inspection section. I might say that when I joined the inspection department, it was known at the inspection department. Later on, it became the quality control department. And finally, when they made Tom Darton director of reliability, it became the reliability department.
Okay.
And at that time, reliability became part of management, because we always used to report up through manufacturing. But at that time, reliability became part of management.
Okay.
In other words,
Separate staff.
Yeah. And then, of course, I had the motor plants and sheet metal division, and later on, the last 3-4 years, I ended up at Plant 2 and Plant 3.
Okay.
Plant 3 and 2.
All right.
So why don't you shut it off a minute?
Okay.
This is Edward speaking again. I want to mention that I told my wife in my obituary that I wanted mentioned that I started in the mailing room at Oldsmobile in 1927, and I retired at the end of 1970 after 43 years, 3 months, and so many days.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And now let's get into some of the...
Ed,
Yeah?
go back to the mailing room, will you, with me?
To the what?
To the mailing room.
Yeah.
Tell me.
Bud Tooley.
Yeah. Tell me about the old administration building. What was it like?
Well, it was, of course, when you say what it was like, it was just offices, mostly all offices that I remember. And the 2 buildings were hooked together by, I always remember that overpass that you had to go in between on the 2nd floor.
Okay.
See? But
The first building that you entered, was that where the manager stayed?
Yes, at the front end of that building.
Okay.
Carter was the manufacturing manager.
Yeah.
Bernard was behind him,
Okay.
and
Were they on the first floor?
yes.
All right.
And I don't remember all the. It seemed like a fellow by the name of O'Brien was head of sales, but I may not.
No, I think that's right.
I may be wrong on that.
Who was on the second floor?
Well, primarily, as far as I know, I don't remember too much about it, but no, I'd rather not say. I don't know who really was on the
Okay.
second, but the lesser offices were on the second floor
Okay.
and back. See?
So the more important people
Yeah,
were on the
were in
first
the
floor.
front.
All
In the
right.
front. Yeah.
Now, the thing had a pointy roof. In kind of the lobby area where you came in, there was
Yeah.
a peaked roof.
Yeah, but
Was there anything up in there? An office?
I
or
don't
anything?
remember.
Nothing up
I,
there. Okay.
I don't remember.
All right.
But I do remember I had to carry the mail just about on the hour. I used to carry the mail through these two buildings on the hour.
Okay.
I used to go over in the service building, which is to the north,
Okay.
about twice in the morning and twice in the afternoon. And then I used to have to carry the motor plant, which was way to the east end of the plant.
All right.
I carried them once in the morning and once in the afternoon.
Okay.
As
Did
a
you
ma-
go outdoors to get? You must have had to go
Oh
outdoors
yeah,
to get that.
yeah, yeah.
What the second building that you walked into from the overpass? What was in that?
Well, that was all offices up there on the second floor.
Okay.
And in the first floor back. And I think we were back. We were on the ground floor
Okay.
of the first building. And as I remember, Campbell U-All that you spoke about, Mary Ann spoke about, was on the second floor above us.
Oh, okay.
The
So
advertising
you actually
agent.
had the ad agency was
The advertising
was
agency.
right there
Yeah,
as part of
right
it.
there. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
Now,
Oh, one other question. I hate to keep interrupting
that's
you.
all right.
Was the inside of that building like all made out of wood? Was it a wooden?
Primarily, the floors were wood, as I
Okay.
recall.
The walls were.
Well,
wood,
I
or
think they
did
were.
have a lot of wood.
No, I don't think so much wood as I think they were just like a plastered building,
Okay.
as I recall.
All right.
Yeah.
Lights. What did you have for lights?
Well, I mean, they had windows, and of course, the lights. I mean, we had lights at that
Or
time.
were they hanging down from cords?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
I didn't notice that
That's
detail.
all right. Just curious.
Yeah.
Not many people have been in that old building. See.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, anyway,
Okay.
continuing on, of course, I sort of went over the war years, as I said.
yeah, and we missed the Depression. We didn't talk about what
All
happened
right, I
during
can
that
talk
period.
about the Depression. Of course, we worked 2 months and was off 1 month. And as I recall, they reduced my salary down to $90 a month,
Okay. That was
which was a lot.
They did that for everybody.
Yeah, which was a lot.
Yeah.
And as I say, we worked 2 months and had 1 month off.
Okay.
So that's
That was true of everybody.
yeah.
Mhm.
And of course, I don't remember too much about it. I remember that a study was being made on motors at that time because Buick and Chevrolet were valve and head motors.
Okay.
Some of the rest of us were L-head motors.
Mhm.
And the cost of these motors was studied very precisely, and the L-head motor had less cost than the valve head.
Mhm.
But somebody was wise enough to make the decision that we'd stick with the valve head engine, so,
Okay.
or stick with that design,
Yeah.
which Oldsmobile got into later.
Yeah.
So we still had the L-head. Well, now into the, as I said, the war years, the First World War, of course, the 20 millimeter 37 and 75, which we built very few at the end of the
Mhm.
program. My job was liaison work between product engineering, because I was still in product
Mhm.
engineering.
Mhm.
See, now after we got into when I was in the inspection or reliability department, I headed up the inspection on the 90 millimeter gun. And then, of course, we had the 90 millimeter. They went into the 3.5 rocket. And also the J65 program, which is over in Plant 3.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at the completion of these programs, I had the job of closing them all up.
Okay.
Not only the 90 millimeter, but the 3.5 and the J65 program over in Plant 3.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
When you closed them up, what did you have to do, Ed?
well, in other words, the government came in and all the materials that were used for making these parts
Mm-hmm.
had to be disposed of. See?
Okay.
Now the 3.5 rocket was stored. All of that material was stored.
Okay.
The material in the J65, especially inspection material, and the 90 millimeter gun, so far as put on the open market, of which which we bought
Oh.
surface plates and everything else
Oh, okay.
at a very good price. See?
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
and of course, what I remember, we had bowling teams and
Okay.
basketball teams, and
Yeah.
all through the years that we used to. And I felt that Oldsmobile sponsored a lot of loyalty at that time.
Did they have those, Ed, when you first came in the late 20s and 30s?
Well, I remember the bowling teams. As I recall, I was on bowling teams most of the time when I was in product engineering,
All right.
and we sponsored our own basketball teams out of a group in product engineering. We
Mhm.
called it an Oldsmobile team, but of course
Sure.
this was in the city league.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
Herb Holmes and Roy Shook.
Did everybody have to work at the plant, or could you have people from outside?
No, we had most everybody. In fact, most of them were on engineering that I
Oh, yeah,
recall.
okay.
So I don't know whether we ever won any trophies.
Had a lot of fun.
Yeah. And golf, bowling, of course, and of course I remember a lot of the bad things that always occurred too, because like if we'd have a quality problem, you'd have to. I mean, you'd feel bad about it. I mean, you'd do what you could about it. But I shouldn't speak about these things, should
Well,
I?
no, but that's part of the business. I mean, that's
Yeah,
the way it was.
that's right.
So.
I remember they had to campaign 35,000 differentials when we got into this welding program
Mhm.
over in Plant
Mhm.
3.
Mhm.
And
When you first became part of the inspection organization, Ed, they worked for the manufacturing organization.
that's right. They were under manufacturing.
How did the inspectors and the production people feel about each other in those days?
Oh, we got along. I mean, what the heck? I mean, there's a few instances that I shouldn't tell maybe how this. I always remember Harold Wright. They had something wrong with the blocks, and one of the foremen in manufacturing decided there was nothing wrong with them, so he puts them on the conveyor line. Harold Wright goes down around the corner in the conveyor line, and when he got down to him, he took them off again.
Oh.
Now maybe. Well, anyway.
But so then maybe the emphasis in those early days was more on making parts than on
Yeah. Well, we.
on the quality aspect,
Yeah.
or was
Normally, like we had our stations, our inspection
Mhm.
stations, and we really didn't have any trouble if there was a problem. I mean, if
Okay.
something like like if, maybe it even had to be tested by engineering. I remember one time we had 100 and some blocks that had a defect on them. And we talked to engineering about it, and they took one of the blocks and tested it, and eventually they approved it. But this is probably 3-4 months later, see? But we worked together pretty well as far as that goes. Now, I had something down here. One thing that I always remember when I was in inspection, one of the things that I wanted was a work sheet on each operation that we done. I mean, what did the inspector do? How many times did he do it? Or things like that.
All right.
And we also made a book up on receiving inspection. I mean, these are the things that I remember doing, see. And of course, the only trouble with these worksheets, the minute we got them out there, why, Fred Lenz come along and said, you got too many people.
From time study.
Yeah, time study, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Were the worksheets kind of a job description?
Yeah, job description. That's just about the way they were.
And you hadn't done that previously?
No, we never had them.
So
Never had them previously.
How did people know what they were to do?
Well, they were instructed, you know what I mean, but I like to have it in writing, see, so if anybody come through, they could look at the operation, see what they were doing, and so forth.
All right. How about, Ed, the use of charts and collecting your data on problems? Did they do that in the early times or not?
Well, especially if it was a special operation or a special job, I'll remember that I remember when we got into the rocket engine, for instance. No, it was a new design in the rocket engine. It was a new valve lifter that we made out of sheet metal. It was a 16-stage die that they made. They used to make these, and one of the things that we could do for engineering, we took maybe 100, 150 pieces and checked them before heat treat. Checked them very precisely for a heat treat, and then checked them again, numbered them, and checked them again after, and we could give that information to product engineering, see.
To see if they had changed
Yeah,
it.
see if they did. The fact is, I remember we changed by about 2,000 is all. So.
But the use of statistics and that kind of stuff, had that come to pass in those earlier times?
Oh yeah, of course your receiving inspection, we always had quality control. For instance, speaking about remembering the bad things, one time we got 163,000 wheel bolts that they pressed into the axle shafts, see? Well, inspection took 50-some samples, laboratory took 50-some samples, and went through them. I mean, out of this group of 163,000, and yet they found nothing wrong with them. But the minute they hit the line, the press operator noticed that the heads began flaking. That about a 30-second of the head began flaking, see? So he called his foreman over. They took that particular batch off the line and put a new batch on, and they were all right again. Well, then there was about 3,000 pieces out of the 160-some thousand pieces that had missed the heat treat. Oh, my God. So those are the things I remember, see. So
and that's, I guess those were the things that happened to us.
Well, as I say, of course, I really think, of course, when we joined as BOC, I mean, when it became, I think Oldsmobile lost a little loyalty. Maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, you felt that way, see.
Probably true.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, maybe shut it off now. I don't know what.
We'll see. So.
All right.
Okay, now we're looking at a picture in old is this the old administration building or the building next to it?
No. This isn't, not the old one. I think this is in I think this is building 64 or 34. I don't know which one.
Oh, maybe 34.
Yeah, maybe
okay.
building 34.
All right.
And this is my nose to the grindstone right here.
You're the guy
see?
at the first board.
Yeah, at the first
All right.
board. And Al DeBicky is behind me.
Okay.
Now, I don't really recognize these people back
That's a little
here.
fuzzy back there.
So, have you got another one?
Okay.
Well, we got all these.
What of these you
Okay.
want, you can have. That was a,
This is a group of, oh, the Rocketeers.
yeah, that's,
Yeah.
and,
They're boys.
and this is, Dale Carnegie, you know,
Yeah.
Dale Carnegie.
So this is the whole Dale Carnegie bunch.
Well, this is a class,
Yeah.
one class
For-
of Dale
for that
Carnegie.
particular-
And you know, a lot of people here record the Bill Mounts and Carol Lunny, and
And they're all identified. here,
they're all
so
down
that's
there anyway,
good.
but they're not
Okay.
in order. These are not
Oh,
in
they're
order.
not in order
I
as
looked
you
the
see
other
them on
day.
here.
Yeah,
Okay.
I looked the other day.
There's Pete Estes.
Yeah, Pete Estes.
Mhm.
That was the class I was in.
Okay.
See?
All right.
Yeah. You haven't got that on, have you?
Yeah, sure. Tell me about Dale Carnegie.
Well, the one thing I remember, of course, they divided the class and lined us up opposite each other, see?
Okay.
And the fellow over here on one side gave the other guy a topic to talk on for 2 minutes.
All right.
See? Well, the line was, everybody was fishing and hunting and so forth.
All right.
And Bert Zavitz, who was opposite me, he says, "Kumquat." And I hardly knew what a kumquat was, see? And I tried to talk for about 2 minutes, making kumquat pie and so forth and so on. See? Of course, that was a test, I suppose. But that's one of the things I remember about Dale Carnegie, see?
Yeah, I see old Bert right there.
Mm-hmm.
Good. All right.
Well, this is a bowling team, one of the bowling teams.
Okay, this is a product engineering group, basically.
What? Yeah, I
Product
think so. I
engineering
think
bunch?
so. It was Clarneller, me, and George Madden. I don't know whether Brown is still living or not. He Wayne Brown became chief engineer of Holden's, Australia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I don't know
Don't
this
know who
fellow's
this guy
name.
is. Okay.
Forgot
All
him.
right.
Here's an engineer. That's Iverson. Remember Iverson? This is Pratt.
See, there's names here that say.
Oh, yeah.
That's Gerke, it says.
Yeah.
Is that you?
Yeah. Whose is this? Sanders?
Looks like
Alex Pratt's in
Yeah, Alex Pratt.
S.G.
It's Sanders, isn't it?
God, that doesn't look like Sanders. No, Sanders is the next one.
Oh. Well, Sanders went on to down to the corporation and became quite high up.
But then it doesn't tell who the last bunch of guys are.
No, I don't know who they
Don't
are.
remember who those were. Okay.
Just picked those out the other day.
About when would that have been taken, Ed?
Well, it must have been taken in the 40s.
That
I'd say
in the 40s?
in the 40s, yeah, early 40s.
Okay.
It's these are all engineering personnel, mostly,
Yeah.
except he's service, Iverson. But and I left engineering about 49, see, to go out
Okay.
in the plant.
All right.
So
But this is a pretty old car back here. It's got wooden wheels.
could be, yeah,
So that's why I was wondering if this wasn't maybe in the 30s. Could it have been in the 30s?
could have been. Yeah, well, I doubt. I doubt. Might have been. Oh yeah, it could have been in the 30s.
All right.
It could have been in the 30s.
All right.
Yeah. Sure. Fact is, I had a 31. My first Olds was a 31 with wood wheels.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good.
Yeah. Now this is a group here. I don't know what it's taken some banquet or something.
Yeah. You know who's in that with you?
That's me, and that's
Matt Campbell.
Matt Campbell.
That's me.
where?
Here.
Right there.
This is Fitzpatrick,
That's Doyle Fitzpatrick.
and I don't know him.
I don't know him either.
Now
That's
who's-
Sanders.
Yeah, who's this?
And that's
He said
Bob
see-
Rodinger.
Yeah, he's because he'd be the new car conditioning. I
Yeah.
couldn't think of his name.
Bob Rodinger.
Yeah. Have you got that photo?
One similar to this. Yeah.
Oh. Well, you probably don't want that.
Oh,
one.
sure, I will take everything. We are collectors.
Well, of course, this,
Oh,
where is that article?
1960, okay. This looks like Sherm Lawson
Yeah, Sherm Lawson, Vern Johnson.
and
They-
yourself.
Now,
Okay.
here's the article on it.
Oh, yeah, and that's the picture, okay.
Yeah,
So this is out of Team Magazine, or
Yeah.
whatever we were
Yeah.
doing there, okay. All right. Keep those two together then.
well, what do we got here? This is, well, that's when I went out in the plant, see?
This is when you went to inspection?
Yeah,
All right.
in other words, Louis Church took Katke's place.
Yeah.
And he
Elmer.
took his place and I took Elmer's place.
All right,
see?
okay. So this is
So-
another article in Team or one of those.
Yeah. Well, just the whole, I didn't.
Oh, I see, okay, it's in that
Yeah.
executive bulletin, all right.
No, this is just another photo. Oh, here it is. And this is, of course, the 90 millimeter.
All right, now what are these guys doing?
We're just posing.
Oh, you're just
That's-
posing, okay.
Yeah, this is me. That's Arnold Hansen.
All right.
Irv Leibold, he used to be the ordnance
Don't know who the
inspector.
guy with the white shirt is.
I should remember, he's out of,
Okay, that's all right.
can't think of his name now.
And this
And
guy,
this is McLean, or
McRae.
McRae.
And
yeah.
who is this guy again between
That's
McRae?
Irv Leibold.
Okay.
Now, he's the ordnance inspector. He,
Oh,
he
okay.
worked for the government.
Oh, all right. Now, we didn't make this shell here, did we?
No, no.
Somebody's loading in the thing?
But the amazing thing that I always wondered about, these tubes came in
Yeah,
as a rough casting of some
Okay.
kind.
yeah,
And the first operation was to straighten them.
all right,
And you'd see this big press come down and the rollers on the end here.
yeah.
And that, you'd swear almost those things are going to break.
You bolted
But
so far.
they'd have to stress them far enough, overcome the stress so that it wouldn't go back to its
Uh-huh.
original position, see.
I'll be darned.
That's, of course, McRae could tell you a lot more about that.
What is this little dolly this
It's
thing
just,
is sitting
it's
on?
just a dolly to carry it. I mean, it's,
Was it pulled along in a little chain?
yeah, I think so, yes,
Uh-huh,
sure,
uh-huh.
pulled along the,
All right.
yeah.
And this big black thing, is that?
That's the breech. That held the shell, and then
Okay.
and then you had a block that came down behind it.
All right.
We made these three parts: the tube, the breech, and the
And the,
Yeah, and
whatever
it's,
that
yeah,
thing is
whatever.
that went in the head of it, okay. And this was out in building, looks like building 37, I
that's
think.
37, I believe. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And of course, this is just another picture I'm posing from the breech. That's this
is
thing right
this
here.
is
see?
this so-called
Yeah.
breech.
Yeah,
This came in as a big
yeah.
piece
We
of cast iron
machined them.
too?
We machined them.
Mhm.
We used to have long gauges that went in and gauged the rifling.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to check that thing about every half inch or so all the way out.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Did you, was the gauge, you read the gauge way out at the end?
Yeah.
Uh-huh,
yeah.
uh-huh.
Fact is, I always wondered, the fellow that made these gauges used to be in the oil fields of Texas, and he was in the business of the sonic testing for oil wells, and how he ever got into this operation, I don't know. See.
Oh, was it sonic tested in there?
No,
It was
but
just-
well, it's all.
Another
This
one.
is all. This is just hooked
Oh,
on.
okay, so the
It's
breech
just
block, oh, it's a
that's
close-up
block
of the
it,
breech.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
So
Okay.
I got a reliable back
Yeah,
there.
all right.
No, I had something on my mind I was going to say, but I forgot it already.
See, Ed, the cannon went into building 37. You must have been there when we pushed down all those old buildings there, where we built building 37?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was there, but of course, there was 37 and 34 was beside it.
Oh,
wasn't
yeah.
it?
Yeah,
Wasn't
yeah, right.
And the the funny part of it is, we were in the old building, the old brick building, not very long.
All right.
Before we moved, in the mailing room, before we moved over on Townsend in the office building
Okay,
that
to
they
the new
built.
building.
The new building,
Yeah.
but still, that's down now,
Yes.
see?
Yeah.
And that's where I moved. I remember moving from that building over to product engineering, which was, I think, 34. I don't know
Yeah,
for sure.
I think that's true.
Yeah, at that time. I should have kept track, but I
No,
didn't,
that's
so
all
I
right.
can't.
Were you, when you were in that product engineering building, were you down on the first floor then, or up on the second floor? Do you remember where you were kind of physically
I think we
located?
were on the first floor. We had the blueprint machine.
Okay.
Might have been on the side. I don't even remember that.
Well, that's
now,
all
see?
right,
See?
okay, no problem.
You know,
It's just-
I shouldn't, I don't know whether to tell you this or not, but when I was in the blueprint room, we had a vault. This is in building 64 now. This is the new,
Okay,
where
so you
product
moved over
engineering-
there.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. There was a vault, and there was tracings and prints in there from way back when. The Northway engine,
Really?
yeah.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
they had a picture of a paddy wagon in there. It's probably just about as big as these tables right here.
Yeah.
See? And that intrigued me because of all the drafting detail they went into making a chain. Every little chain was there,
Oh, my
and
goodness.
the wires held that on the side of the paddy wagon. Well, I carried it home, and we carried that all the way around for years. And about a year ago, I said, "Well, what am I doing with this?" I said, "Nobody hardly knows what it is." It's 1897 or something like that. Was
Yeah,
the date on it.
yeah.
See, so I wrapped it up and I sent it to the REO's museum.
Oh, yeah, sure, good.
But they never got an answer that they even got it. So
Really?
no, never
That's
even got an
terrible.
answer that they got it. I think they got it.
I hope so.
Yeah, but I thought maybe it'd be interesting for them to have that.
Yes, it would be. Yeah, that's right.
Well, is there anything else I want to talk about?
Oh, sure there is. I'm going to ask you some more questions if you're
All right.
if you're ready. When you went from building 34 to building 64, the engineering building
Yeah.
changed when you did that. That was sometime in the 30s. I can't remember when the building was
Mhm.
built, but anyway. Do you remember why they did that?
Well, you mean it was a new building they built for engineering, especially as 64 was an engineering building.
But building 34 was built as an engineering building too,
Well,
I think, wasn't it?
no, I don't think so. I think they just moved their equipment in there because the garage was on the main floor and back, and
Okay.
you had offices in front,
Yeah.
and the drafting room I think was on the second floor.
Oh, all right.
Sure.
Okay.
But building 64 was the building built for engineering
Mhm.
because they had their cold room and everything else in that
Okay.
building.
All right.
So, I mean, they really didn't have the equipment in 34 that they had in 64.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember. I remember going around the proving ground in the Viking with Carl
Okay.
Schilkett,
All right.
and of course that was a thrill that you went through, you know.
Mhm, mhm.
And of course, while we was in product engineering, we used to have the 50,000-mile tests on all cars. You used to go down once a year
Mhm.
and view all the parts that come from those cars and
Yeah.
engines and how they stood the test and so
Okay.
forth and so on.
And that was happening even before the war?
Oh yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, yeah, it had to be before the war. I was still
All
in
right.
product engineering. So,
All right.
So, well, the fact is, I was in product engineering during the war.
Yeah,
too, see,
yeah.
But that was, yeah,
Now you mentioned the Viking.
yeah. 1929, 30, 31.
Yeah.
That engine was kind of a unique engine, as I remember.
Aluminum. Yeah. Yeah. It was a fact. It was a very good engine. I always considered it, and it was fast, very fast. V8. Yeah. Because I didn't have really too much to do with the engine as far as that goes.
You were still pretty young.
Yeah. Just started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you get out in the plant to see where they made them at all?
Yeah, I was over it. I mean, don't remember much about
Like
it.
the
but I
engine
remember,
plant?
yeah,
You went down
I
to
remember
the-
where it was built.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. I remember, as I say, I remember a lot of bad things too. I remember the time that in the inline blocks where the production engineering division, the tooling division, decided to bring in, instead of milling machines, can't even
Broach?
think. Yeah, bring in a broach.
Okay.
This broach probably was, well, half as long as this building.
Yeah,
see?
huge thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it never worked out. I mean, because and you'd begin only taking maybe a couple thousandths of an inch of material all the way down through here.
Yeah.
But this thing would break up. They'd break up. They tried it for several months. Don Mosier used to be inspector at that time. I remember. Of course, I was still in product engineering, I think, when that occurred. See.
You remember what they were trying to broach?
Well, they started from the rough block.
Yeah.
See, in a milling machine, the mill would take it down to a size.
Yeah.
It was slow, but a broach, if they put the broach in, it would move through, and they evidently couldn't hold the block tight enough to broach that material off because there's too much variation in the blocks.
Yeah.
That's what it amounted to.
So they were trying to do like the top of the block where the cylinder head would go.
Yeah, and it'd be a nice smooth surface, see, but never could make it work. Of course, it cost maybe only $1 million or something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Now the Viking went away.
Yeah, because right in the Depression, because they couldn't sell them.
Got caught there.
It was, everybody like, Buick had the, well, it leaves me now. I can't.
Marquette.
Yeah.
Was it the Marquette?
Yeah,
maybe?
Buick had the
No,
Marquette.
I don't know what it was.
Somebody else had something else, but
Cadillac.
they all went to the wayside. Of course, one thing I remember still talking about when I went into product engineering was the amount of effort that went in to try to come up with a copper-cooled engine. But I never got into that. But this was in the 20s.
They were talking about that?
Well, yeah, they're still talking about it.
Yeah.
But Oldsmobile spent money, and awful kinds of money, trying to develop the copper-cooled engine so they wouldn't have water problems.
Right.
So, but of course that wasn't successful either. at that
When you
time.
had got there, it had all gone.
Oh, yeah,
Basically,
yeah,
that discussion.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, from the Viking, we when we quit doing that, then we made the straight 8, the line 8.
Yeah.
And
the inline 6 and the inline 8, see?
yeah,
They're L-head engines.
right.
And of course the 6-cylinder, we were, to a degree, we were always underpowered in our engines, which when they went into this rocket engine, they decided they was never going to become underpowered again, see? And they weren't. That was a nice engine, that rocket engine, see?
Well, how come they went to the old line 8 then, when they had just gone from a V8 to the line 8, I wonder?
Well, that's of course, I don't know why, but I mean, the Viking engine was a V8.
Yes.
But the inline 8, if it produced 100 horsepower, we were lucky, you see. But I'll always remember the 1936. Of course, now we're just emerging from the Depression years.
Yeah.
Very few cars were built.
Yeah.
And they almost dropped the inline 8 and 36.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And finally they decided at the last minute they were going to use it, they were going to put it, and he could hardly get into the chassis
Uh-huh.
because the chassis wasn't big enough for
Yeah.
that inline
Yeah.
8, see. But, oh,
See, during all of that Depression time, Ed, you didn't have this 2 weeks or 3 weeks on and a week off during that
oh,
whole
no,
period of
no,
time,
that
did
only
you?
lasted, probably less than a year. I
Okay.
don't know for sure, but
Yeah.
there were about a year maybe. But it didn't last too long.
All right.
32, and then 33 you begin coming out of it.
Okay,
see.
all right.
Now, of course, the transmission, the automatic transmission, came out on Oldsmobiles. You know, I mean, first.
That early,
yeah.
you know,
And
automatic.
of course, the first year they used the fluid coupling with it,
Yeah.
fluid coupling. But the next year we went directly to shifting, automatic shifting.
Mhm.
See, and of course, Olds was more or less looked upon as being the first division that received most everything at that time. Hell, we used the first automatic choke. You had a list of those things anyway, someplace, see. But and that was quite a thing.
See, the automatic transmission, Ed, was preceded by safety transmission, I think it was called, that had a clutch,
Yeah,
but it
yeah.
still would shift gears.
See,
for you.
where you wouldn't clash the gears.
Yeah.
Synchromesh.
Yeah.
Yeah. But of course that wasn't anywhere near the automatic transmission. When you got the automatic transmission, you had all this fluid
Uh-huh. Yeah.
shifting.
Yeah.
See, so yeah.
What did you have to do as a liaison? What was your task
Well,
there, basically?
In other words, you're a representative of engineering to manufacturing inspection. I mean, your work was always between. Maybe inspection wanted something or manufacturing wanted something, you'd carry it back to engineering and they had to make the decision, well, it could be done or it couldn't be done. It's the same way with the foundry. You were the representative. You had to go from product engineering to the foundries. Production engineering, maybe they wanted to change something on a casting, maybe a block or a head or something else. Well, you'd carry that information back to engineering to the foundry and back again. See, it's more of a just in between.
Yeah.
That's about what it
Yeah.
amounts to.
Okay.
And of course, that's how I got into a lot of these things. That's really how I got out in the plant, as I said before. Going to the foundry with T.C. Downey. Now, he never knew me except for those trips. So, when the job opened up in the plant, he must have thought of me. That's about what it amounted to, see. Yeah.
Did things like when guys were making parts and they didn't quite come out right, they'd ask for a deviation or something? And
Once
that
in a while,
they
yeah,
would
yeah.
come
In other
see
words,
you and-
yes, if something didn't meet. Now this happened especially during war work, like 20 millimeter gun.
Okay.
That was my biggest job. We'd produce X number of pieces in a day that wouldn't meet specification.
All right.
Maybe they're off 1,000s here,
Yeah.
or off
Yeah.
2,000s here, or something like that. That information I'd have to carry to engineering, and
Yeah.
either they might make the decision, or they might send it to Waterville Arsenal or
Oh,
someplace
okay.
else. In other words, somebody else had to make the decision. See,
Yeah.
so.
Did we actually design that gun, or was that sent the design?
No, that
sent to
was
us?
the 20 millimeter gun was given to us, and
Okay.
the 37 was given to us.
Right.
Some of the design group had the job of designing a that feeds into the gun. In other words, I can't think of really the name, what you'd call it, but Andy Watt was in that program.
Okay.
But we always had, during the war years, they had the job of trying to take cost out of the gun.
All right.
If they, and
So if they could see a better way to
Yeah,
design it
yeah.
or build it, why?
and they had some design work that was given to them by the government to try to better things or something
Mhm.
like that. See,
Mhm.
that was product engineering. I wasn't in that, but I was
Yeah.
in liaison all the time.
Yeah.
The other one, let's see.
Did you ever get down in the little gun test
Little
room?
what?
The little
Yes.
gun test,
Yes.
underground test
Let me
room?
tell you. Should I tell you about
Yeah,
that?
please do.
It was noisy, of course, but of course I don't know how far those tubes extended, but they were concrete tubes with the gun shot into sand down on the other end.
Okay.
Now, now I'm getting to the bad part of it again.
That's okay.
Anyway, engineering designed an arm of steel buffer on the end of the 20 millimeter gun.
All right.
We had a forged buffer before,
Right.
that was forged and then machined all over. It was an expensive thing.
Yeah.
But they come up with an arm of steel buffer, and it was not machined on the outside, it machined where it had to be,
Yeah.
that went into the end of the 20 millimeter gun, see?
Okay. That's right out the end of the
Yeah,
barrel?
yeah.
Mhm.
And they had thousands and thousands of rounds that they tested this thing with. And so we decided to go in production with it, see?
Okay.
Somebody else tell you about this?
No, well, no.
But anyway, we no more and got in production, and we had a cracked buffer. This buffer used to have a design like a design where you had to slide it down in.
Yeah.
See, so because the buffer took the back pressure from the breech, it used to go back and forth here.
Okay.
But anyway, we began finding a cracked buffer right here. See,
Oh, yeah.
and of course that threw everybody
Uh-huh.
in a tizzy. So I had the job then of going down, being down there, and after every gun was fired with this arm of steel buffer on it, we had to inspect to see if there was a cracked
Oh,
buffer.
my goodness.
Now, if there was a cracked buffer, then you went through the shells. Now, what happened is that the shell would have a defective primer on it, on the end of it.
Okay.
See? So the full force of the blast would come back and hit the buffer.
Oh.
Well, of course, that might happen up in an aeroplane,
Sure.
too. So we had about 3,500 guns that we had to rework down in, I remember they were stored in Columbus, Ohio. Vern Yallop had the job of getting back into production on the forged buffer and going down there and changing them all.
I'll be there.
So,
How many shells did we used to fire through a single gun to test it?
oh, I think about 40 or 50.
Wow. And every gun got fired
Oh, yeah.
down in there.
Yeah.
We must have
That was
had.
a noisy place.
Yeah. Do you remember about how many guns they could shoot at a time?
Oh, I think they had around probably 12 or something like that. I think they had around 10 or 12 stations that they could fire these through, see.
Okay. Just a minute here. I'm gonna get that rehooked. Lost my spring for some reason. There we go. So that was a reasonably big place then under
Oh,
the-
yes. I'd say it was, well, maybe I probably don't remember it too well. Maybe it's twice as long as this right here.
Okay.
And of course, they had these concrete tubes that they used to have a stand here that they mount the gun on,
Yeah.
go right on down through. Then they had, I don't know how often they changed it. They changed the sandbags on the other end every so
Because
often.
you'd shoot 'em
see.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the shell itself would fall down in a box.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but that's that's one of the experiences on the 20 millimeter gun.
Did people wear any ear protection, Ed? Anything to
I don't
protect your ears in those
remember.
days?
I don't remember. I imagine they should have.
Yeah.
I imagine that the safety department would have insisted on it. See?
Yeah.
I don't remember wearing any.
Yeah, that's what I
Of course, I
thought.
wasn't there all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
See?
yeah.
But
Now, we never fired the big guns.
no, we never fired. We fired 37s, not here that I recall.
Okay.
Well, I was down the Erie Proving Ground several times, in which we had firing, or they used to have what they called like Firestone, Olds, and somebody else made the 20 millimeter gun, and about every 3-4 months they used to have an interchangeability test.
Oh.
In other words, they'd take guns that you shipped them out in the field. They'd collect them. I don't know where they get them. And they'd tear them apart or tear them down, and every part had to fit each other gun. I mean, if it didn't fit, there's something wrong, see. But the ordnance would go through all these parts, see. We had to do that every so often to make sure they were all right. One thing I recall is this was during the hydromatic fire. If you remember the hydromatic fire, the day they had the fire, I remember we were in Tom Downey's office. There's Arnold Hanson, myself, and Irv Leibold, the ordnance inspector. Now this is a 90 millimeter again. But we were in, ordnance had called up and says that you got a problem with a gun, 90 millimeter gun, it doesn't extract. You want to extract the shell. So we were had our plane tickets, we were in Downey's office. Every 5 minutes was interrupted by this fire, hydromatic. Oh, this is burning, that's burning, this is burning. Well, I remember Downey had to make certain decisions on what they were going to do with production and so forth. But anyway, we went down to Aberdeen Proving Ground, this is in Maryland, and they showed us, said, look, this showed us a gun. Sure enough, the shell wouldn't extract, see? And Arnold Hanson, he worked his off. They said, well, it was the finish where the shell went in, finishing. Well, we'd check them on a micro check, and they'd check all right. I mean, heck, then you'd feel it, and you'd feel it all right, see, too. But sure enough, every once in a while it wouldn't extract, see. And we were there about 2 days or 3 days, and Arnold was polishing these things out, and once in a while he worked hard on it. I was with him. I don't know. I don't recall working that hard, but anyway, the shell went down like this, something like this. But anyway, they had Firestone guns there. The Firestones, they were extracting. Ours wasn't extracting. See.
Oh, okay.
So finally, one of the workmen there, he says, look, he says, try this shell. That shell extracted, see. Come to find out, ordnance had made a change in the radius of this thing here. It made a change in the radius, and they never gave it to Oldsmobile.
Oh.
Firestone had the bigger radius. We didn't have the bigger radius. The shells wouldn't extract. Anyway, we were excused for it. They accepted the gun. We didn't have any problem with it. After they found out that we never got the change. Well, what do you think?
Just a couple questions on the rocket engine, okay? See, now, you were in inspection at that point in time?
Of course, through the development, I was still in engineering because, and then, yes, the rocket engine was being made because Kapke was
Yeah,
in charge
when
of
he
the motor
went
plant.
off to
See,
Ford.
and he went off to Ford. See,
Yeah.
that was, so it must have been a year or so that after I went in
Okay.
the inspection. See,
See, my question is, did you do anything different with that engine from a production and inspection standpoint than you had done from previous ones?
well, there were certain things that were built in to the engine line that we never had in the other line. For instance, one thing I remember is when that block got down to a certain place, it turned over, and anything that dropped into that block would come out.
Okay.
I mean,
dump.
this is just a cleaning method.
Yeah.
I mean, things were built into the rocket engine that we didn't have in the other plant.
Okay.
Now the other plant, as I say, I did have the inline. I was in the inline 6 when they were building rocket engines over here
Yes.
in the
Yeah.
next building.
Was most of the inline engine, Ed, was that kind of a single-purpose machine? Didn't have any big, long transfer machines?
Well, they had quite a few transfer machines, but most of them weren't connected. Most of them would run down on a conveyor line or something.
Like a roller
Yeah,
conveyor or
like something like that. See,
Okay.
there's one thing I'll never forget. In the rocket engine. Now, I was still in engineering on this one.
Okay.
But anyway, I was a liaison with, I remember Bob White was a motor engineer.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, when we got, I guess this must have been, well, when we got back into production, I don't remember what that would be. That must have been in late 40s,
Yeah.
after the war.
Right
see?
after the war. Yeah.
And we'd get engines over on the final assembly. They'd get 100 engines a day. They had to reject due to noise. Valve lifter noise.
All right.
And other the clacking noise. It'd be just a regular clacking noise. Well, of course, Dykstra was the plant manager at that time.
All right.
And, of course, he could tell people off pretty well. But anyway, this
Recording of Edward C. and Mary Ann Gerke of 379 Sterling Drive, Diamonddale, Michigan. The recording was made by Jim Walkinshaw at the Oldsmobile History Center on November 9th, 1990. This is tape number 2 of 2 tapes.
Okay, Dykstra?
Yeah. Anyway, he called a meeting. It was my boss was with me and several other people. I don't remember them all now. But anyway, he said, well, he wanted a decision whether this noise wasn't good enough. See?
Oh.
Well, here I am, the littlest pill on the totem pole.
Yeah.
I says it's not good enough. I wouldn't want it. See? Well, of course, he went on along. So, my boss come back and says, maybe we better start testing forged camshafts again. Well, here we've been in cast camshafts for 10, 12 years. See?
Oh, yeah.
This is Bob White.
Yeah.
And Archie Lathrop. You may not remember or not. But anyway, he said, well, he says, let's go over and talk with head of the motor plant. I can't think of his name now either. Roy Fischel. He says, Roy, what would it mean if we took all the brass hammers on the assembly line off? Take them right out of the line and give them something else to use. Do that for a couple of days, will you? They did it. Noise cleaned up and did everything. What was happening, a little piece of brass, you could hardly see it, would lay on the camshaft, and the first time over to iron it in the camshaft, and of course then you had a noisy lifter.
I'll be done.
No more problems after that, see? That just cleared up just like that, see? Took all the brass hammers off the line.
Interesting. Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Well, Ed, in the in the later years, contrast for me how you changed your, what I'll call the inspection approach. Did you change anything in that in your last part of your career where you spent all of your life in what I'll call inspection reliability? Did the approach change?
Oh, I don't know as we changed the approach too much. We had, I think, closer cooperation between production engineering and methods and inspection and manufacturing. I think that we worked pretty well together. I mean, sometimes, maybe in early years, they might have been, although I don't remember really any. My first problem was with personnel, more than the inspection itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the basic approach stayed.
I don't
Fairly
difference. In other words, people make an awful lot of difference too. See, I knew when I got out in the plant, I had to have somebody that knew the plant better than I did. And of course, when we went into the first job that really had to engineer from an inspection standpoint with a 90mm gun. And I mean, we had to do that, all gauging and all that. And of course, I called on Harold Wright, who was familiar with the plant and so forth and so on. So, yeah.
Did the change to the reliability department, did that make any change in how we did our?
No, I don't really think so, except that it might have been. I really don't. This seems. The fact is, you're called inspection, and the first thing you know, you're called quality control, and the next thing you know, you're called reliability. It's sort of a gradual thing, but I don't think there was too much difference except, as I said, when they made Tom Darton director of reliability, he directly to the general manager. I mean, he was direct to the general manager. See, maybe he could get more attention. I mean, maybe get more budget or something else. I don't know.
But it didn't affect how you operated out in the plant.
Not the way I operated. I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I think of a lot of things, and a lot of the things are problems or quality problems that you come across that you remember. And I don't know why I remember the bad things. Maybe I remember the good things too. I remember when we went down to, I made a trip to Hydromatic one time, and they showed me on a chart when they went to ultrasonic cleaning of their parts, internal parts, their problems as far as shifting problems and so dropped almost to nothing when they went to ultrasonic testing. So, and so I came back and I told Elmer Cole, I says, I think we need somebody to know how clean these parts are before they go into the engines. So we started a lab. I mean, we had only one man directing it, but he took a block and he'd wash it down and collect all particles, a block ready to go on the line, see? You know, and he just took the different parts and so forth. And then we would burn it off. And I shouldn't tell this at all, but then you'd end up with what looked like sand, a little packet of sand coming from the parts, see? And I remember one of the engineers come over and looked at it. He said, "They're putting sand in the engines." Oh, well, that didn't last too long, but we didn't
just
find
coarse sand that hadn't gotten out of the block
That's right.
or something.
Might have sure. in little pockets, you know, and so forth. But even anything will burn in the sand if you burn it long, and look
Yeah.
like sand.
Yeah.
So well.
Who was your best boss, Ed, in all those years?
Well, it'd be hard to say, but I'd say this, that John Alphys probably took the time and to fact as he was teaching me angles and so forth before I got on the board, you know. He was real interested in his people. And Bud Tooley was all right too.
Okay.
My first boss.
Yeah.
Fact is, they were all good as far as I was concerned. Well, I'll make one. I should not make one exception, but the boss that had the least finesse was Sid Starneman.
Starneman.
Yeah.
He was a dealer, didn't he?
Well,
Eventually.
he was chief inspector when I went in there.
Oh, I'll be darned.
Yeah, sure. He wanted a dealership eventually.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he was so, I don't know what to say. It was, well, unsure of himself. He's so unsure of himself that he had to take it out on somebody else.
Yeah. Can you, Ed, go back and contrast for me what I'll call management styles from the early days to when you retired? Did that change any, how we managed our people in the plant?
No, I don't really didn't notice too much except in the style of for instance, the general manager. When you had Skinner there, why, he was pretty much in getting people trying to, in other words, you do it my way or else, see?
Oh,
Because,
okay.
that's how a lot of people got in arguments. They're not like Youngren, Harold Youngren.
Okay.
He was our chief engineer.
Yeah.
He knew the hydromatic transmission, or the transmission from A to Z, Harold Youngren. Well, Skinner said he wanted him to do it something a certain way. Well, Harold says, you tell us what you want, we'll do it this way, see? But Skinner wanted it done a certain way,
Oh,
see?
okay.
And of course, that's how they got in an argument. Youngren was fired. See?
Oh, was he?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize.
In fact, they locked his office. But of course, it's my personal opinion, we done ourselves a lot of harm because Harold Youngren went down to Borg Warner and developed their transmission, their automatic transmission, which Ford got eventually. See? So, I mean, that's the way I look at it. So I don't know. And of course, Dykstra couldn't get along with.
See, there were several Dykstras, weren't there?
Yeah, this is John Dykstra.
This is John.
Jim Dykstra was in the product and engineering section.
All right, yeah.
And John Dykstra was, and of course here John Dykstra, when he left us, he went out to Norris Thermidor. And it was there for a short while and back to Ford.
Yeah.
And of course, eventually.
Yeah.
There again, when we made a rod for Ford during the war years.
Okay.
And I wondered why Dykstra spent so much time in Ford.
Okay.
Because every time I was down there, he was down there, see. But he had a reason for it, I suppose. Now, I shouldn't tell you all these.
Well, that's probably true. I mean, it may be true.
Yeah.
See, Ed, during the war, did you get to work on any of these other, what I will call different kinds of parts other than guns? Did you work on any of these rods and engine parts that they made?
Well, I had the fork rod, which was made over in the six-cylinder plant.
Yeah.
And that was supplied to, that was a Rolls-Royce rod.
All right.
And that of course, we supplied Continental over in Muskegon. Of course, I had to go over there. We made a mistake on that one time, too. I won't get into it. I say we, must have been part of it, maybe, because they had a rule. They had a rule. The way this was, the first operation, you tightened the 4 bolts to a stretch of about 12, 13 thousand. You stretch those bolts.
Okay.
See?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know where it happened, but somebody got the idea, we want to stretch it so far at the beginning of operation, see?
Mm-hmm.
But every time you took a cut, either inside or outside of this rod, it took less tension to round them up again, to round the rods up, see? Well, when they didn't bring them up to 12, 13 thousandths to begin with, we ended up down here that it took about 3 to 4 thousandths to round them up. And the specification had to be 6 thousandths, 5 to 6 thousandths. Otherwise, the rod was no good.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, well. Why do I remember all those things?
I don't know, but you're doing fine.
That was impressive. That probably impressed me.
How about, let's see, didn't we make another rod that was machined also down there that had 2 big bushings in it, or was that part of the fork rod?
That's a fork rod, I think.
Okay.
See, the fork rod, had 2 connecting rods
Yeah,
on it.
they fit between.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The fork rod, yeah.
Okay.
I still remember the aircraft inspector's name was Howdeshell. We wanted to use an air gauge on these holes, and but every once in a while you couldn't get the gauge, the regular gauge, the full gauge, full round gauge through there too, even when you had the air gauge, see. So, of course, it was probably some out around little imperfection or something like that in the hole. So he got a note put on by the Air Force on the print that if you used an air gauge on here, you also had to use a full round gauge.
Oh my.
He had to put right on the print, see. But if you use a full round, well, why use
Why
the
use the
air gauge, see? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
you think that's all, huh?
Well, I don't know. What I gotta think, what if we've missed now? See, you mentioned, did you say you were over to the differential plant in plant 2 and 3?
Yeah.
At the
Yeah,
tail
that's
end?
where I ended up at.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Harold Houghton was
What,
in charge of.
anything over there that I would consider different than what you were doing elsewhere? What?
No, I mean, of course, I inherited it.
It was already there.
It was already there,
Okay.
and I more or less carried on what they were doing. Fact is, I do think that we made great strides in eliminating the whining in the differentials. I mean, I think we learned a lot in the last few years that I was there, and how to control this so you wouldn't get a whine at 55 or whatever it is, or a whine at some other speed, you know. But
What did you have to control to make that go away?
well, it was in the honing of but they learned a lot and how to do it those few years. The last few years, fact is, well, heck, I've been retired 20 years at the end of this year. See, so yeah. Yeah, this was some papers I had. This is who that's the
your
retirement party, and
Yeah.
here's the last people that were. Fact is, this is plant 3. Yeah.
Okay, this is your
This is
your
plant
bunch?
3. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
The
Okay.
foreman, Chelsky. This is a girl, Charles. And I think Kessler, I think some of these people are dead already too. Kessler's dead, I
Probably
think.
true.
Yeah. Yeah. Swabash.
Okay, all right. And
You
this
want
is,
these?
Sure, you betcha.
All right.
You betcha. And this is your retirement thing. Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. Well,
Okay.
now,
Yeah.
what do you think?
What do I think?
Have we covered it?
Oh, I think so. There's probably little things that I know there's certain things that are still there, but I mean, I don't think you get any more from me that's worthwhile.
Well,
See,
I don't know. You never know.
you think this did all right?
You bet.
All right.
How about, did you know the general managers at all, Ed? Any of those?
No, not very well. I mean,
See them much?
I remember them.
Yeah.
Yeah, McEwen, D.S. Evans,
Yeah.
of course Skinner, and of course Cook came on after I left.
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
so, but well, Metzel,
Wolfram.
Wolfram, yeah, and guy that died,
Belts.
Belts.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember we checking chrome-plated bumpers over out here at this service plant.
Mm-hmm.
Had several cars lined up with Belts and Tompkins. Tompkins succeeded Darton, I think,
Okay.
as and the thing we had, one thing we had I didn't mention, in inspection, or in reliability and inspection, we had our own gauge section
For making or
for
buying?
designing and buying
Okay.
gauges.
All right.
And that's unique, because most divisions it was done by the Master Mechanics Division.
Oh, okay.
And this is what Chuck Armitage headed up for a while,
All right.
that particular part.
Yeah.
And that gave us problems in cost, because they'd say to Gerke, I said, your inspection costs are too great.
Uh-huh.
Because Pontiac over here does it less for less.
Oh,
See?
yeah.
You go over to Pontiac,
Yeah.
see, and check everything out. Well, you're just as good as Pontiac, except you got this cost over here, see, and their master mechanics did their job, and
Oh,
we've
yeah.
done our own job.
Yeah.
So that used to be a thing that we used to go through all the time. See,
That
oh
would be a
well,
source of problems.
yeah.
Well, okay. I think you did a nice job, Ed. Really appreciate it. So,
Well, you can take it for what it's worth.
oh, that's good. The only thing I really should do, and I don't know, do you guys have a time schedule you have to live to?
No.
I mean, I should actually move the microphone to your wife and have her tell me about the early days when she was over there.
All right, if you wants to.
Would you? Do you wish to? Huh?
You want to move over here?
I'm going to start, and you would just give us your name now.
I'm Mary Ann Gerke. I'm Ed Gerke's wife.
All right. Now, Mary Ann, you started at the plant at some point in time. Why don't you start back there and tell us what you were doing?
Well, I think it was in about 1929.
All right.
And I had, my folks had moved to Minneapolis, and I wanted to stay in Lansing with my sisters. I was a senior in high school.
Okay.
And so I called Campbell Ewell to find, to see, I was calling everybody I could think of to get a job. He said, young lady, you called at the right moment because our secretary has just had emergency surgery.
Okay.
So I went up and interviewed him, and I got the job, and I worked there about 2 months.
Now, where was that?
That
physically?
that was downtown.
Here in Lansing? Or
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
in Lansing?
And I think it was on Capitol
Okay,
Avenue.
all right. So you were here in town with Campbell Ewell?
Yeah, for 2 months. And then and after their secretary was coming back. He said, now I'm going to take you down to Oldsmobile to personnel and see if you can't find some work down there. Well, I got a job working with George Stableford in Dealer County.
All right.
Not Dealer County, what was it?
Never mind.
Well,
That's
anyway.
okay.
And it was over in the old office building. You had to go, I went in, took a streetcar to work, and I got off of the streetcar on Olds Avenue and walked right straight down to this old building.
Okay.
And our office was upstairs. And I worked, I went to school in the morning, and then I got to work at 1 o'clock, and I worked during the afternoon, and I worked Saturday mornings.
Okay.
And at the time that they moved the office building over on Townsend to the new building, I helped move. Got a little overtime on that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And
No, you had mentioned that you had done some, now I'm going to call it modeling in cars. Where did that fit in here?
well, that was when I was in the old building.
Okay.
And one time, they used to take us out to Reuter's beautiful home.
All right.
And now one time we modeled down by the swimming pool, not in swimming suits, but down in that area.
But he had a swimming pool?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And in the front, we modeled it with the cars.
Okay.
And then one time they called me out of work. They wanted, and I think this was when I was in the new building, new office building.
All right.
They called me out of work. They wanted me to model on a new fender press that they had just installed.
All right.
That was about it. I didn't do too much of it, but
Did they tend to use the people that worked at the front
yes,
for those kinds
yes,
of things?
yes.
They didn't really hire professional
No,
models, so
no,
to
there were
speak.
several of the girls that did that.
Mhm.
And then I left during the Depression. They moved our office to Detroit, so we were all let go.
When they moved you to Detroit, you went to Detroit?
No,
Oh, okay.
no, they moved the
They
office.
moved the whole
The whole-
operation.
Yeah.
Okay. What did you remember? What they gave the reason for doing all that was?
Cut costs. They had all of them together then. See, they
The
had all.
Buick and the Olds and
Yeah,
the Ford.
that to
Okay.
cut costs.
Yeah.
So then I did a lot of things during the Depression to earn money, and I gave away glasses at a gas station.
Okay.
And then when I came back to Oldsmobile, I applied for work, and I was in the parts billing department, running a
Okay.
billing machine.
All right.
I liked that very much. And I worked there for several years. And then the auditor's secretary was going to move out of the state. And I happened to be a friend of hers, and Mr. Stanley Petrotz was the auditor at that time. And of course he knew me because Laura and I talked together, you know. And so he asked me if I would be interested in a job. So I took that, and I was the secretary to the auditor until, well, I married Ed in May, and I worked through the summer till September.
In 41,
Yeah.
when you left.
Yeah, when I
Okay.
left in September of 41.
Now, you had mentioned how you had come to meet Ed.
Well,
It was on a machine or something.
Mr. Stableford took me down to engineering, which was down at the end of the building. And
Was that through that little tunnel?
no, this was the new building.
Oh, this is in the new building.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And he asked John Alphys to have someone show me how to operate the ditto machine because he wanted to have a lot of reports made up.
Okay.
So they assigned Ed to show me how to run the ditto, and that was the beginning of the
Okay.
end for Ed.
Okay. But apparently you didn't have any of that kind of machinery in the office building?
No, well, it was there. It was down there. And we, I think we used, I can remember going across the hall and using some equipment that they had. I think
Okay.
they everybody didn't have the same thing,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
so.
When you first came back in the late 20s, what were you typing? What were you doing?
Yes, I was typing and filing and making reports, and
Okay.
but that was about it.
Okay. Very
That's it.
good. Thank you too.
I didn't have much to say.
Oh no, that's interesting.